Hello everyone and welcome back to Every Heart Can Dance. This is Kyryl and today we'll continue with the dance of Samba. And I have prepared a pretty cool topic for you today, which is called do's and do nots of Samba hip action. That's a pretty vast, pretty big topic, but I'll do my very best to keep it simple and clear. So, let me share with you a couple exercises that will allow you to feel your Samba hip action in full and will give you clarity when to use the hip action and when actually to avoid moving with your hips. And as usual, if you have not subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button and notification icon so you can get notified every time we post a new video. And let's continue with our Samba hip action. Alright, let's start from these three super important points for our Samba hip action. Point number one, and super simple, the most simple point, is our pelvis connects to the knees. So every time we use our pelvis, our knees reacting. Every time we use the knees, our pelvis is still connected to it. We have talked about it in the previous Samba tutorials. Now, point number two, and it's following. Our hips connect to feet, which means every time we use our feet, our hips are reacting to it. It's very important. Watch this. Feet apart, without moving the weight. Lift your heel up. Your hip is falling too, and filling in that space between hips and ribs where we have no bones. So that's the space for the hip to go up. Again, lifting the ankle, lifting the heel, hip goes up, lowering. Even if I were to move my weight on top of my foot, keep my body in the same level and do the same action, the hip is still following. This is what we need for our Samba. So you can just practice, play like this. Now, very important side note for this action, if you notice the knee position is straight. We cannot really do this if our knee is bent. We cannot really create the hip action with the bent knee. So this is do's and do nots. So please do not bend the knee and try to move the hip around. This is not exactly the right way. So try to move the weight, lift the heel, but keep your knee straight. Okay, that was point number two. And the third point more so is an umbrella term of what is hip action. If you recall from the tutorial where we talked about rumba hip action consists of a pendulum, release, rotate. Pendulum, release, rotate. We're going to use the same in Samba. In fact, Samba sometimes is being termed as rumba on the bent knees. So we're going to use these three exercises, knees and pelvis, feet and hip, and then pendulum and rotation for our Samba hip movement. Alrighty guys, here's the main Samba hip action exercise, at least the first part of it. Please watch this. With feet apart, we're doing the same zigzag man as we've done before, knees going back, pelvis going forward, ribs closing in, chest forward, and the head goes back. So we have this kind of little opposition inside the body to maintain our position. Our weight is more towards the balls of the feet. Now from here, same as we did in rumba, we have pendulum, rotation, pendulum, rotation, pendulum, rotation, exactly the same as in the rumba Cuban rock action. So pendulum in front of the shoulder, hip goes in front of the shoulder, side and back, and then we go again, pendulum, hip goes in front of the shoulder, side and back. So this is the volume and the hip action. Now, let's turn it into Samba. So what we'll do now, with feet apart and a little bit wider position than we normally do in rumba, just because of this knee is going to be bent right now. So what we'll do, we're going to start softening knee without shifting the weight yet. You'll notice right away your hip is reacting to it by having this hip going down, this side up. So this is what I'm looking for first. Again, knee straight, you soften the knee and enhance this position of this hip down, hip up. And now what you need to do, you just need to shift your weight. You can lift the heel, shift your weight to the side. Don't think about going down, think about knee going forward. Your weight is shifting towards the standing leg. Now, what do we do now? I'm going to release that hip, the one that is up, and start growing on the standing leg at the same time. So pressing, growing, so my hip becomes neutral, or maybe even slightly higher on this side, and now I will rotate back. I'll repeat the same exercise. I will lower the foot, I will soften this knee, and I will enhance that position of hip going down, hip going up, shift my weight even more, and now I can release again. Release, grow, and rotate. Again, lower, Soften the knee, hip goes down, hip goes up, and shifting the weight. Lower this hip and grow on the leg and rotate in the hip. That's it, pretty straightforward. Please do it slowly so you can actually feel one action after another. Don't do too many actions at the same time. One after another, like a layer cake. One layer, another layer, another layer, another layer. Don't make it mud cake, yes? Don't do too many at the same time. So, feet open, hip goes down, or soften the knees and hip goes down, hip goes up. Shift the weight. Now grow on the leg, rotate. Lower, bend one, soften one knee, this hip goes down, the hip goes up. Shift the weight, and then grow and rotate. If we were to add our foot action, it will happen only when we are straightening the knee as a continuation from the knee straightening and when our weight is on top of the foot. That was super important. Watch this again. Feet open. I'm going to soften this knee, hip up, hip down, hip up, and transfer the weight. Now, what I'll do now, lowering this hip, growing in the leg, and now as continuation, that ankle and rotation will happen together. Now I'm going to lower the heel, I'm going to be soft in this knee, and shifting my weight over. That will also create increasing, that will give us increasing difference between hip going down, hip going up. This is very nice crease that we're looking for. Pelvis is still underneath us. Now we're going to be growing in the leg, lowering this hip. Ankle goes up and rotation. That happens together. Lower, soften, shift the weight, grow first, rotate. That's it. That's all we're looking for. So when we step in one, we grow and this is duh. We'll step, bend, and growing duh. So if I'll do it, I'll turn around, I'll do it from the back. Same idea, feet open first. Now soften this knee, this hip goes down, this hip goes up. Shift the weight, grow on the leg, rotate. Lower, bend the knee, hip goes down, hip goes up. With weight over, grow, and then we rotate. Now I'm starting to add my ankles, feet, and lower, bend and over, grow, rotate. Again, try to do it step by step. Lower, soften the knee, shifting weight, still keeping that hip down, hip up. Now releasing this hip and growing in the leg, and only now rotating. Lower, bend, and pay attention to this one. I am growing and I am on top of my ball. Then I can go up and rotate. That was super important point because if you're staying back and trying to go up on the balls of the feet, we'll be falling. We've talked about in the previous two tutorials as well. So, to summarize it, our knee bend, hip going down, hip going up. That's our pendulum rotation. Lower, moving over weight, pendulum finish, rotation. This is the first part of our Samba action exercise. The second exercise is identical. It's exactly the same, yet with only one little difference is that instead of keeping our feet side to side, we're going to have one foot in front, one foot at the back. You can even keep the same feet flat as before, and we're going to create the same pendulum rotation as we had before as well. So a pendulum in front of the shoulder, rotation, pendulum in front of the shoulder, rotation back of the shoulder. So starting from the straight legs, from the kind of rumba exercise. First, if I'll do it a little bit on diagonal so you can see me better. Again, I had pendulum rotation behind the shoulder. Lower, I'm going to go pendulum in front of the shoulder, rotation, pendulum rotation, lowering the heel first, pendulum rotation, lowering the heel, pendulum rotation. So same idea as we would do in rumba, just keeping one foot forward, one foot at the back. Yeah? So for Samba, same idea would start. Pendulum rotation. Now from here, I'll start lowering the heel and softening this knee. So that will start lowering my front hip and lifting even higher the back one. Now when I transfer the weight, I still keep that position. Now all I do now, I grow, again hip kind of in front of the shoulder, and I'm going to go up and rotate. Or you can just rotate even without going up at first. And then again, you're going to step back, and you're going to be soft, again, softening this knee, This hip is up. Pendulum rotation. Lower, soften, transfer weight, bend knee. So this hip is up, this hip is down, this hip is up. There is a nice crease here between the hip, between the leg and the hip. And now we're gonna grow on the leg, still the same direction, and we're gonna rotate. Lower the heel, soften the knee. This hip goes up, this hip goes up, this hip is still staying down. We grow on the leg, and then we rotate after. Do it super slow. This is less comfortable position. You need to engage your core. You need to engage your core to stay more balanced, and your legs are very strong. Remember that tension between the legs we've talked about in the previous tutorials? It all still works here too. So lower, soften the knee, hip goes up, hip goes up, hip goes down. Transfer the weight. Pendulum by growing. Yes, and transferring the weight. Now if we were to add ankle, we go up and rotate. Step. Go roll, rotate and go up. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and done. So this is our Samba action number 2, or Samba exercise number 2. And lastly, before I show you the exercise number 3, and I'm going to try it with music, all these 3 exercises, I need to share with you this information. There are figures in Samba where we do hip action and create line, just like we did earlier. So this is a kind of creation line that we're going to be gathering. So there is a point where one knee is bent, one leg is still straight. That's the creation of that line position. Again, we still have to make sure that we gather it quite fast. However, there are also figures where we don't have this line, where we bend both knees all the time. The hip action would still be the same. The idea of the hip action would still be the same. For example, when you're doing reverse basic, yes, or even side basic, we don't create lines in here. Yes, we don't create lines because we don't have time for it. Yes, for example, when we're doing Botafogo, on the first step of Botafogo, there'll be no line, but there'll be a bit of line in here on the second one that we have to be gather and move on to the next one. So the point is, for the exercise number 3, there'll be no line. There'll be no time when one knee is straight, one knee is bent. But the hips are still the same. Please watch me. What do I mean by this? So if I were to start with, again, feet apart, and I'm going to be using feet actually right away, I'm going to be shifting my weight, bending both knees, growing, rotating. So this is the time where both knees are straight. Again, from here, there's a bit of pendulum, but I'm bending my both knees. Growing, rotating. 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and. See, the idea is still the same. I'm bending knees and pelvis. See, separate action. Growing, now I have hip rotation when my knee was straight. Again, I'm bending both knees right away. Growing, rotating. I'm not moving my hips. This is do's and don'ts, yeah? So do not move your hips when you're at the bottom there. That's slightly different type of dance, yeah? So what we do need is to move the weight, bend both knees, that's our knees and pelvis, grow, rotate like we did earlier. Shifting weight, but bending both knees. This is still pendulum, boom, yes, but both knees bent. Grow, rotate. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. I know it's a little bit looking a little bit choppy, but the more you practice, the more you stay on this growing straight first, and only after going up and having your knee straight and rotating, that will create magic with your hip action. Okay? In fact, with most of my competitors' kids and developing students, I am actually always starting with the bounce first and only after creating line, because line is very short-lived. 1 and done. If we stack in here for too long, we actually being late into the next step. So it's very important to stay here. So if I'm going to go up on toes, shifting weight towards one of the legs, bending both knees. Grow, rotate. Lower, grow, rotate. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Back view as usual. Feet apart, bending both, growing, rotating. Bending both, growing, rotating. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and last one. Here it is. This is the 3 exercises or 3 parts of the same exercise of Samba hip action. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, And here it is, guys. Here's our Samba hip action that we've done on 3 different exercises. Please note, those are the full beat exercises for the full beat action. In the following tutorial, we're going to talk about a quarter beat action that we have with the hip and with the body that will allow you to keep up with really fast Samba music regardless of the figures that you're dancing. To summarize what we've done today, make sure you do grow first, then you have rotation. Again, you're bouncing, bending knees, straightening, and as continuation of the straightening, that rotation happens. That allows us, pushes us to the next movement. Please try to avoid bending the knees and moving, rotating your hips while you are down. That will only affect your balance, bounce, and the timing of the action. Thank you for watching. I know the video was quite long. Thank you for your patience. I was trying my very best to give you more full understanding of how the hips move and being matched with the bounce. So please do make comments below the video. I'll be more than happy to respond to them and to make further videos, because your comments and your questions, of course, give me an opportunity to understand what you guys are thinking. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.